So, with that, let's begin. I'm just going to take a moment and bring my hands to prayer pose at the level of the heart. And I just want to create an intention for our practice, a motivation for our practice. And what's coming alive for me is this. May the experiences of your life become the raw material for your awakening. May the experiences of your life become the raw material for your awakening. And so we'll begin. And I'd like to begin today taking a couple of deep breaths, just so that we can fully arrive here. And I want to bring into our practice and into this simple exercise of breathing in and breathing out anybody who is struggling to breathe. You know, not everybody has clean air to breathe. Not everybody has healthy lungs. There are many people who suffer with negative habit energy related to smoking. And one of the results of that and one of the consequences of that is incapacitating the lungs. And so to come into the presence of this thing that we do 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, even when we're not conscious of it. Truly, when the body goes unconscious in sleep, the body still breathes on our behalf. This particular part of our mechanical well-being is going on, regardless of our emotions, regardless of our mind. And I don't know about you, but I often take breathing for granted, and it's a bit of an irony given the fact that I am also highly aware of my breathing because I use it so often as a focal point of my meditation. And yet I go about my day, I get busy and I get distracted and I don't even think about it. So let's think about it. And let's bring forward the preciousness of the breath. Breathing in and breathing out. Breathing in and breathing out. One more time. Breathing in. Breathing out. Friends, for the month of May, we've been exploring the first aspect of the Noble Eightfold Path, wise understanding, reimagined. And the language that we're using as a way, as a vehicle to cultivate wise understanding is to simply be curious. And so this week, a lovely curiosity has come forward in the form of the word marvel. And I'd like to bring forward a marvel in relationship to the breath and in relationship to you and to me as human beings as we breathe. And that marvel are, I think, saints alive on the planet in the form of trees. And these saintly beings receive our exhalations and they inhale them and they transform that carbon dioxide into the oxygen that we then inhale. So we are interconnected, trees and us. They look after us. We take refuge in their shade. Their roots create all kinds of architecture and structure for the soil. They are home to countless living beings. Trees are marvels. So, together, let's breathe and imagine ourselves in relationship to these saints. Maybe you have a favorite tree on your property or in a nearby park. There's a tree on my property called Grandfather Black Locust. And this is one of only several native trees to eastern Washington in the high prairie where I live. And this is a particularly old tree. It's been around for well over 100 years. My guess is that the person who built the house probably planted this tree. And it is an extraordinary guardian. Its bark is gray and deeply fissured. Its branches are thorny and treacherous. It has all kinds of wee little hollows where woodpeckers have carved nests. And last night we had a big storm come through, and there were all kinds of dead branches that the tree just sort of, and the wind just shook off. So I got to spend some time with this tree this morning, cleaning up a bit. So as I breathe in and I breathe out, I'm imagining Grandfather Black Locust, who, by the way, is blooming right now. And this tree blooms with these beautiful dangling white blossoms. They are very similar to wisteria, and they're pollinated exclusively by bumblebees. And the bumblebees that pollinate this tree get so weighed down with pollen and nectar that their buzz lowers in frequency and they're very wobbly in their flight. It's one of my favorite things to watch. Bumbles that become like B-52 bombers in their buzzing, their bumbling buzzing. It's quite a treat. And yet, when I come to this marvel, when I come to this saint and I breathe, it receives my breath and cleanses the air for me to continue to breathe. Can you identify a saint in the form of a tree in your life? And can you just imagine this marvel and breathe? Can you be curious about your relationship to trees, even if, say, this is the first time you've ever really thought about it? Isn't that wonderful? Can you be curious about that? friends. There's a wonderful poet and Irish mystic by the name of John O'Donohue who had a very unique relationship to the natural world, and he wrote about it in some of the most exquisite language. And one of the things that he spoke to that touched me deeply was the idea that the natural world, the landscape, maybe even a tree, could delight in my presence as much as I delight in its presence. And I really love thinking about that periodically, to imagine and to be curious about consciousness in living beings that is so different than my own consciousness, but it's consciousness nevertheless. And we are connected, we are interconnected. I depend on the trees. So is it truly that far-fetched that grandfather black locust, whom I just stare at in awe, is it so far-fetched to imagine that it could be gazing at me with a similar kind of delight? Something to be curious about, something to wonder about. And if we bring this back to the topic of recovery, why we're here, to learn to shift our relationship to negative habit energy. One of the reasons why I feature these unusual explorations is a way of opening and creating some spaciousness in the mind that becomes so isolated, limited, haunted as a result of negative habit energy. And so it's a way of waking up a little bit and seeing that there's a whole world happening. There's so much going on in life. And in any moment, we can tap into it and be infused by wonder and joy and peace. This week, I want to share with you one of my favorite books. This is my Roget's Thesaurus. It's the big one. Lo gave it to me. And I love this thing. And the reason why I'm bringing it forward is because I want you all to get a thesaurus and to play as another opportunity to use a unique tool for practice. And the reason why this is coming forward is because of that word marvel. And earlier in the week, I was so fascinated how many people in community heard the word marvel and in their own interpretation reflected back the word miracle. Isn't that curious? And so today I spent just a wee bit of time looking up the word marvel compared to miracle. And indeed, when you look up the word marvel, there are 5 different connotations for it: marveling, marvelment, marvelous, marvelousness, marvy. But under that word marvel, the word miracle is synonymous. And some of the other synonyms are wonder, astonishment, awe, fascination. So just take a moment. Be curious about the ways you engage with the experience of marvel. What does it mean to marvel? And why I intentionally did not use the word miracle is because so much of what I see, particularly in the Western mind, is this habit energy towards something I call the spectacle. Everything's loud and big and flashy and pyrotechnic and like a big stadium spectacle. And if it isn't a spectacle, then and beyond measure, then it's of no value. It's such a falsity, and it's a painful kind of dualism. Either it's super outrageous and big, or it's small and worthless. And why this is important to examine is because in the realm of spirit and spiritual practice, the small, the simple, is the access point to the profound. The loud spectacle is often associated with distortion, confusion, and conflict. And even that is a dualism. But it's a way of reminding me, anyway, that when I'm engaging in spiritual practice, I have to get quiet, I have to get simple, I have to get still, and then I gain entry into the awe, the amazement. The word miracle, initially, it has four different connotations. Miracle drug, which I thought was so weird. It goes miracle, miracle drug, miracle worker, miraculous, and miraculousness. Isn't that strange? So curious. And it isn't until you get to the words miraculous and miraculousness that Roget's Thesaurus really starts to get into words like supernatural, magic, enchantment, phenomenon. There was even reference to sorcery. But the miracle, that word itself, was right next to marvel. And so to be in the presence of a miracle is to be in the presence of a marvel, something that evokes your awe, something that elicits wonder. And you know, friends, you don't have to go very far to experience this. In fact, you can turn an inward gaze to your own being. It is a miracle that we're here at all, is it not? And I'm not just talking about surviving through the horrors and sometimes ravages of negative habit energy. I'm talking about the evolutionary magic and enchantment of being here in this moment, connected to a legacy of ancestors over thousands and thousands and thousands of years, and the trials and the tribulations and everything that happened to them has led to this moment right now with you. A miracle, a marvel. And we can tap into it so readily, sheltering with our saintly friends, the trees, and simply having and enjoying a breath. Breathing in the marvel of me. Breathing out the miracle of life. Breathing in the marvel of me. Breathing out the miracle of life. One more time. Breathing in. Allow a mantra to come alive in you. Breathing out. Share that mantra with the world. Take a moment, friends. Thank you, friends. Namaste. Couple of announcements. So this concludes our month-long exploration of wise understanding and how to be curious. And beginning on Monday at 6 p.m., we're going to spend the entire month of June exploring the second aspect of the Noble Eightfold Path, which is wise intention. Okay, so get a thesaurus. I mean, a real one. A real one. So many of you didn't see my thesaurus because your eyes were closed when you were meditating. I mean, look at the size of this monster. It's so great. And look up the word intention and look up its connotations and look up its synonyms and just kind of broaden your definition of. I love seeing your thesauruses. Yes, that's so much fun. I will tell you, I took several women on retreat a number of years ago, and I gave a list of these are the things that you need to bring. And I think one of the first things I listed was a thesaurus, and everyone was like, what? What is she going? What are we doing on retreat with this woman? Yeah. Anyway, so look up the word intention, because how we're reimagining wise intention, the cultivation of having good intentions or not so good intentions, and so forth, is to be spacious. So you can look up the word spacious. What does it mean to be spacious? All right. Check out the website that Lo has posted in the chat. It will connect you to Soul Center. You can see our Recovery Dharma meetings Monday through Friday. We're also listed on the Recovery Dharma meeting page. We're on the Buddhist Recovery Network as well. On Wednesday next week, we begin with another month of Sate Seva. And if you're not familiar with that, you can read about it on the Soul Center website page. Sate Seva is 16 mindfulness practices. It's another way of reimagining recovery and support. It is all about mindfulness. And we've been exploring the mindfulness practice of space. So the two things coming together next month are just going to be really, really auspicious and beautiful. Email me with any questions or concerns. And remember, friends, that I mentioned at the very beginning that our sessions are recorded and we have an enormous amount of content. And so you can go and have these recordings on in the background and listen to them and really get an introduction to what Recovery Dharma is. If there's a meeting that you need and that you can't get to, you can have access to the recordings. They're all freely offered. And if you'd like to make a Dana offering, you can. I do want to let you know I'm getting ready to make available the Sentiment of Metta cards that I read before our practices. And so and in fact, I do want to mention all the artists who collaborated with me on this project. Miss Michelle, who's here today, Sean C., who's here today, and Lynn, who's here today, are the artists who helped me create the Sentiment of Metta cards. And I am so proud to share them with everybody. Yeah. And it's just another way to support the Spokane Sangha and Soul Center Spokane. And so we'll be announcing that in a big way, on the website in the next couple of days. And so with that, let's go ahead, friends, now and end our practice with a dedication of merit. In the Buddhist tradition, it is common to end a Dharma session by dedicating the merit of the practice. Whenever we come into the presence of the three jewels, the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha, there's something good that happens. There's something that touches that incorruptible space within each of us that connects to all things, past, present. It is a consciousness, an awareness that has been present since beginningless time. This is one of the marvels of the Buddha and his discoveries. And while it's easy to elevate the Buddha to kind of like a godlike status, he was a human being. And he worked very hard to make sure that people did not distort him and make him into a god. And one of the things that he emphasized was to take his wisdom and make it come alive in you through the miracle of your gaze, through the marvel of your breathing and the way you connect to the trees. In fact, the way you connect with all of life, your experiences make his wisdom your own through your life. Thich Nhat Hanh had a wonderful interpretation of that, which is your life is the instrument with which you experiment with truth. And this truth, this thing that we're experimenting with, isn't just for ourselves. We dedicate it. In other words, we share it. And so today, your task, your homework is to share the goodness that you experienced here today by virtue of your practice. And I'd like you to share it in a very simple way. Your invitation today to share the merit of this practice is in your eyes. And may your eyes smile the kindness in your heart. May your eyes smile the kindness in your heart. Thank you for being here, friends. Thank you for being such an impeccable source of inspiration to me and to this whole community. Have a great weekend. We'll see you next week. Namaste.